Black History Month advertising.
So we are in Nottingham. Say hi, Piers. We're on a live stream.
Hello.
Hey everyone, it is absolutely
Midlands Rally.
pouring down. We're here for the Midlands Rally. So just bear with us. We're running a bit late.
No parapluie.
Oh, and it's so wet. But it looks like there's a fairly good turnout considering the weather's so bad.
Given that, yeah.
Trying to get this phone turned around. There we are, that's better. So we're here for the Midlands Rally. Like I said, we're running slightly late, so we're literally just about to. So this is in Nottingham.
We'll go there. All right.
He's coming now. This place sucks balls.
Get here and not feel like that.
They're claiming that people are not victims.
Hello.
She was going to get the test. She couldn't get the test for whatever reason. And then she got a positive result.
Okay, so we put this there.
This is how desperate they are to sell this fraud. It is true. It is true. Multiple people writing about that. So, what's really going on?
Someone's popular.
What's really going on is this. I know you can't read it from over there, but I've taken a lot of this information that I'm speaking to you about now, and a whole lot more, and I put it into this report which I wrote a few weeks ago. And the title of this report is COVID-19, Evidence of Fraud, which I've given you a little bit of just now.
Yeah, there was
Medical malpractice, which if we look at Lee's sign down there, hydroxychloroquine, that is evidence of malpractice, medical malpractice. Acts of domestic terrorism, which I'm going to get onto in a minute, and breaches of human rights, which I'll also get onto in a minute. But those are pretty obvious when you start to think about them. So what about acts of domestic terrorism? What about that? That's a pretty big one, isn't it? Well, if you watch UK Column News, you will have learnt about this, some of the documents which have been circulated by SAGE, this scientific advisory group on emergencies. I think that's it. I forget what the acronym stands for. But they have a document, right, and it was published the day before Hancock's speech to Parliament, 22nd of March 2020, and at the bottom of page 1 of this document, which is called Options for Increasing Adherence to Social Distancing Measures. You can do a search for that. It'll bring up a document.
Hi, anyone watching? Is there still a warning on here?
This is them, not me. This is government documents, government advisors documents. It says, perceived threat. A substantial number of people still do not feel sufficiently personally threatened. It could be that they are reassured by the low death rate in their demographic group, which means they know that this isn't dangerous to these people. Although levels of concern may be rising, having a good understanding of the risk have been found to be positively associated with adoption of COVID-19 social distancing measures in Hong Kong. The perceived level of personal threat needs to be increased among those who are complacent, using hard-hitting emotional messaging. To be effective, this must also empower people by making clear actions they can take to reduce the threat. And then on page 6 of this document you can see a table, and they're talking about strategies to achieve this adherence to social distancing. 3 of the strategies are: use the media to increase sense of personal threat. That's in their table. Consider enacting legislation to compel required behaviours. Consider use of social disapproval for failure to comply. This is all in the government documents. They're telling you what they're doing. This is domestic terrorism, folks. It's not about a public health issue, it's about scaring you. And I'm just getting news in, hang on, no. I've just heard that there are fears of a fear outbreak in Birmingham. And then there are even further fears of a bigger fear outbreak in Coventry. So because of the fears of these fear outbreaks, they're going to have to shut down Coventry. That's what these PCR tests are for. Substitute fear outbreak for rising cases, and that's what he means. I'll talk a bit more about this PCR test. The exact protocols for the PCR test vary. There's different ones in use. I've asked for more information from Public Health England, and so far they've declined my request. But there are some documents on the government website, and according to Dr. Andrew Kaufman, who's a microbiologist and a psychiatrist, he thinks that the PCR test has a 100% error rate according to him. And he's not the only one. Certainly there's one protocol which has been used by the Louis Pasteur Institute in Paris, and they identified a gene sequence in the so-called coronavirus, and they wanted to use this as part of their PCR test. But unfortunately for us lot, that gene sequence, and you can read this on the Louis Pasteur Institute website, I've got the links in my document, that matches human chromosome 8. Human chromosome 8. Part of that matches with what is in the alleged gene sequence of coronavirus. So there is just a small chance that you can be getting a false positive match just from being a human being. Okay? That's in one of the protocols. It doesn't apply to everyone, but that's one example of how unreliable this test is. It's basically meaningless. So, considering that the vast stakes have been placed on the use of this test, the reliability of it is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And you can even, for example, test positive, then test negative. This has happened to people. People have been tested positive, and then they test negative. They've allegedly been sick, then they've got better, but they still test positive. Or they can test negative. Now, what's happening more recently is that they're talking about rising cases. You've got to get a COVID test. But the implicit assumption in this is that if you test positive, you are a danger to other people, right? You are a danger to other people. If you test positive, it means you've got to self-isolate. That is interfering with your daily life, sometimes on a massive scale, based on no evidence. Yeah, that's another way of putting it. I say based on no evidence, but your expression is just as valid. Yeah, they're getting away with it. They're getting away with it. But what this is when you're assumed infectious until proven otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, that is in breach of Article 11 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? Because what that says, that is to do with innocent until proven guilty, right? In terms of being accused of a crime, you are innocent until proven guilty unless there is evidence against you. So in my way of looking at things, you are not infectious until you are proven infectious, because you can be treated like a prisoner until somebody gives you a stamp, a rubber stamp of some kind, or some other stamp to say that you are not infectious. That is a breach of human rights. That is a breach of human rights. There's no other way to call it in my book. Yeah, people are buying it because of the fear. People are buying it because of the fear. So the same thing goes with the track and trace. You know, this NHS app that's been downloaded is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It's totally meaningless. It's just a way of tracking people's movements and saying, you can go here, you can't go there, you can do this, you can't do that. Now, what that does is, that is also a contravention of Article 12 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, okay? Because that is basically arbitrary interference with your own life, with your daily living. So no one should be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home or correspondence, nor to attacks on his honour and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Currently, for COVID tests, there is no protection. And these tests, again, as I say, you can get positive and negative. People have been tested multiple times. You know, but your life can be ruined by getting a positive result. Okay, so I'm going to have a break from talking, and I'm going to play a song now, actually, to give you a bit of a break from me speaking.
Is that all right? Yeah. People are waiting. Oh, he's behind you. Cheers. Cheers. Andrew's playing a couple of minutes of a song, and then we'll get you up next.
Turn off your TV. Turn on your mind. The fear of the coronavirus entangled inside your head by television and newspapers. Somebody after a second, you open the newspaper, you open your feed. So do not allow yourself to be manipulated by television. And remember, the fear was given to you by higher power, the television. A second wave is on the way, a second wave of fear. You think the world is back to normal because you can go to Charlie's for a beer. But the second wave is only drama on TV. So if you don't want to catch a virus, switch off the BBC. There is no vaccine on the way. How can you vaccinate a mentality that is here to stay? The second wave is only in your head. And the only vaccination is when consciousness spreads. They call it the second wave. It's only in your mind. The TV is only there for you if you're consciously blind. The second wave is on TV. The deadliest virus in all of Ireland is CORBYN. Donald Trump, that man ain't shy, 'cause he's been dropping hydroxychloroquine, and it's illegal. Why? 'Cause it would save you and me. But why would they want to save lives if they're saving them for free? They call it the second wave. It's on the news. When you enter a shop, they'll make you wear rubber shoes. The second wave is on TV. The deadliest virus in the UK is called the BBC. The second wave, a lockdown again. If you think it's for the best, you're just a battery head. The second wave, you gotta wear gloves. And this ain't 1969, it's too dangerous for free love. The second wave, it will never be done. Sure, how can there be a second wave when there never was a first one? The second wave, it's another scam. They'll make you wear hats and facial hair on wallaby bands. The second wave, you're gonna fall. 'Cause if you are reading the newspapers, you are building your own prison walls. The second wave, take advice from me. If you want to remain sane, throw a brick through your TV. Hold your mind, because you created it. So don't allow television and newspapers to invade it. The Sun and the Daily Mail might pass the time, but the editor's agenda.
Bit of inertia in my phone. Piers is going to come on in a minute. Okay, so that was a wonderful song by Jordan Devine. You can find it on YouTube, whatnot. Not having very many views. So I think it's been shadow banned, but I think a lot of that is inspired. So what about this mask business as well? This is a really terrible thing. I can't tell you how saddened I feel to see people walking around in masks, because I'm just going to read out some stuff about masks now a little bit. We've never really been told in the UK the scientific evidence on which the mask wearing is based. And in fact, up until March, in fact I'm going to play another audio clip about the masks shortly. All the government people talking about masks, I'm going to play that in a couple of minutes. But in 1991 there was a study, a general surgical team wore no masks in half of their surgeries for 2 years. After 1537 operations performed with masks, the wound infection rate was 4.7%, while after 1551 operations performed without masks, the wound infection rate was only 3.5%. This is in a surgical setting. A review by Skinner and Sutton in 2001 concluded that the evidence for discontinuing the use of surgical face masks would appear to be stronger than the evidence available to support their continued use. Lamy et al. In 2001 wrote, surgical face masks worn by patients during regional anaesthesia did not reduce the concentration of airborne bacteria over the operation field in our study. Thus, they are dispensable. And all of the studies were saying similar things.
We do not recommend face masks for general wearing by the public.
UK government briefing statement on the 24th of April 2020.
The evidence on face masks has always been quite variable, quite weak, quite difficult to know exactly, and there's no real trials on it.
UK Health Secretary Matt Hancock, the 24th of April 2020, online interview.
When the evidence around the use of masks by the general public, especially outdoors, is extremely weak.
The 28th of April 2020, SAGE government briefing.
The recommendation from SAGE is completely clear, which is that there is weak evidence of a small effect in which a face mask can prevent a source of infection going from somebody who is infected to the people around them.
Chris Whitty, medical advisor to the UK government, the 11th of May 2020.
It is a very serious epidemic. But equally, the fact that actually the great majority of people will not die from this. And I'll just repeat something I said right at the beginning, because I think it's worth reinforcing. Most people, a significant portion of people will not get this virus at all, at any point in the epidemic, which is going to go on for a long period of time. Of those who do, some of them will get the virus without even knowing it. They will have the virus with no symptoms at all, asymptomatic carriage, and we know that happens. Of those who get symptoms, the great majority, probably 80%, will have a mild or moderate disease. Might be bad enough for them to have to go to bed for a few days, not bad enough for them to have to go to the doctor. An unfortunate minority will have to go as far as hospital, but the majority of those will just need oxygen and will then leave hospital. And then a minority of those will end up having to go to severe and critical care, and some of those sadly will die. But that's a minority.
So that was Chris Whitty saying there's no danger from this virus. He said that on the, I can't remember the date, on the 22nd of April I think it was. Sorry, 11th of May. So you're getting absolutely conflicting advice. And the other thing about masking, I just want to put one very short clip. This is Cressida Dick, who's the chief of Met Police. Now, she actually said she hoped that people would be shamed into leaving the shop if they weren't wearing a mask. She's not a health official, she's a police chief.
Wear a face covering in the shop.
But if someone's not wearing their mask and they refuse to wear in the blink.
Sorry, you can't hear this very well, it's a bit low volume. But she basically said on LBC that she wanted to shame people into wearing a mask. Why? Why would she want to do that? When there's no evidence that these masks do anything, whether you're infectious or not. And there's no evidence that the masks do anything, and there's no evidence that you can pass an infection to other people. So what's going on? It's about social control. It's about social control. So that's all it's about. So anyway, what I've done is, I've got this report, as I said. I'm not going to talk for too much longer, because CORBYN's going to come on in a minute. I'd also wonder if the people behind can be a little bit quieter, so I think it's sort of masking what's going out in the front a little bit. So if people get behind can be a little bit quieter, that'd be great. But yeah, come to the front if you want. Get wet with everyone else. I'm impressed with everyone's tenacity, by the way. You can get this report off my website. I've had the support of over 1,500 people. They've signed up onto this report. They agree with me, including a doctor of pathology from Birmingham University. They agree that the government is committing acts of domestic terrorism on its own citizens, and it's happening across the world, of course. And for example, you saw that last week in Hyde Park, where Dr. Heiko Schoening, he was at Hyde Park Speaker's Corner. He was talking about topics that I'm talking about, very similar sort of things. What happened? He's talking to a group about as big as this, talking away on a megaphone, and then the police came up, 2 vans full of police, about 20 police, they just carried him off. They carried him off, took him to Wandsworth Station, and he was held overnight. It's on YouTube, you can see it. What's going on? What is going on? That is fascism. That is fascism. That's what it is. So I sent this report about the acts of domestic terrorism. I sent it to about 40 police chiefs. I sent it to Derbyshire Health Authority, who refused to correspond with me. I got a message back from their legal advisor saying that he was advising all the directors to send their emails through him, the legal boss, before sending anything to me, and they won't speak to me about what's in this. Why? Because they can't challenge anything in it, when all I'm doing is quoting government documents, like I was quoting SAGE, and I was quoting the ACDP, and all that stuff. It's all in there. So if you have anybody that's sceptical and wants to know what's going on, direct them to my website, this document. They can download it for free. I can send printed copies. I've got a few here, so I've got to go fairly soon, but if anybody wants copies, I can give you a couple. I've got some in my bag. So when I finish speaking, I'll come and circulate, and I'll give them out. So, yeah, PIERS coming on in a minute. I just also wanted to mention a couple of other things before I go. Sir Nick Carter, who was a general in the British Army, he talked about using Brigade 77, and he wanted to use Brigade 77 to quash misinformation and disinformation about coronavirus. And they've got about 20,000 people working on this. Brigade 77. It's another 11 number. I wonder why that is, folks. And also, just very recently, or more recently, the end of August, the WHO, Tedros Adhanom, talked about how they can use the COVID recovery program to help recover from the effects of climate change. Climate change, he got that in. You go and look at the Sustainable Development Goals and how they very closely match up with measures that they've used to try and deal with this alleged pandemic, which isn't a pandemic. So go look at that. Also, if you're not familiar, go and look at the Global Preparation and Monitoring Board. Go and look at them. Go and look at the World Economic Forum. Go and look at the World Bank. Go and look at the World Health Organization, as I've already said. What's this got in common? Global, globalists. That's what this is. As you can see, you can plainly see everything's happening around the world, same sort of things. There are some cracks though. For example, I think it's now in Michigan. They've ruled the lockdown measures unlawful. They've ruled them unlawful in Pennsylvania as well. Parts of Florida have ruled the lockdown measures unlawful, unconstitutional, and they're unconstitutional here as well. So there are some cracks appearing. But I think basically I'm going to leave it there for now. I'll get these reports out, and I'm going to hand over the microphone to the tremendous PIERS CORBYN, who's going to tell you some more.
Hello. Well played, Andrew, well played. Can you make it louder?
I can try.
Is it as loud as it goes? Okay, well, are we in good voice? Yes! Fantastic! It's superb to be here in this Midlands rally against the COVID-con. And I'm here from StopNewNormal.net and also our new banner, Our Movement. As up there, because what we've got to do now is up the ante. We had a fantastic result last Saturday, about 60,000 people in Trafalgar Square and Hyde Park. The biggest demonstration in Trafalgar Square this century. And a few days later, Parliament passed the COVID renewal bill, which was an utter disgrace, an utter disgrace, with some trivial amendments which were, we talk about things a bit more. When possible, well, those bastards just say it won't be possible, but let's see. However, there was an advance. Be quieter at the back, can you? Because it sounds carrying. Can you be quiet at the back, please? We had 24 MPs, nevertheless, did vote against the new measures. Now, that is a step forward, and we cheer every one of them. From whatever party they are, I don't care. If they support us, that's good. If they voted to continue, that is bad, and we shall chuck them out of office. Okay, so we're now entering a new phase where we've got more supporters. But at the same time, the brainwashing is stepping up and up. So you meet people in the street and they're even more hostile, although some of them are peeling away. So we've got to work hard. But the figures show that 70% of the population, according to Good Morning Britain, boo, complete with Piers Morgan, not me, 70% of the population actually do not want a second lockdown. But what we're facing is more division as well. So we've got to build on the success we've got. And we've got to broaden the campaign to include liberty issues, because those are becoming understandable to everybody. When we have these rallies, we get often knocked out well. We get the police intervening, the TSG, Territorial Support Group Police, anti-terrorist police, and they broke up, as you know, a number of rallies in London. They broke up ours on the 26th, just last weekend, but only after we'd had 3 hours of it, because we managed to get a deal using risk analysis, and I know risk analysis was done for this one. The police in some places aren't worried. But anyway, the key thing we've got to do is set up new groups, our movement groups, to cover everybody in every town. So there's different subgroups, but they've got to come under a banner, our movement, to fight back, because if we do not unite, we will lose. And now we've got to go into a massive campaign of explanation to the public. Explanation with leaflets, rallies. Because I would say, never in the history of the world has such a great hoax been foisted on so many in the interest of so few. And our message is, there is no justification in any terms for the measures now being imposed. Okay, so yes, we know for a fact, for example, the death rates are going down and down, yet the measures they're imposing on us are going up and up. And we have now the close down of pubs after 10 p.m. because the virus only attacks people after 10 p.m. And we got more and more road closures because the virus obeys one-way systems and it's to stop it moving around. I mean, this is madness. All these things they're doing are part of Agenda 21 to build a new world order, which is you kept in your place, which is down, while the mega rich go up and up. Okay, now, Sadiq Khan, of course, he was responsible for, yes, I'm glad you're booing him, he must go, I'll say that right now, Sadiq Khan must go, he's an utter disgrace to London, if not the whole world. Yes, you see, he wants He wants a London lockdown, even when Boris hasn't called for a London lockdown. He wants a London lockdown when the infection rate in London is about half that allowed on aeroplanes going to and from countries which have got more than 20 per 100,000 ill. It's insane. He wants to close down his own economy. Who is he for? All he wants is more jobless, more suffering, and the rich getting richer and richer. That's what he stands for, and if they manage to allow an election in May, he must go. In fact, he should go now. Now, it was also him largely responsible for the police crackdown on our rally on the 26th, because we'd done our social, our agreement, our risk analysis, and we'd had 3 hours, but at 13 minutes before we're due to close, the police said, oh, you haven't been social distancing enough or something. Of course, we weren't. We had people anyway, but it doesn't matter. But we were doing our best, officer. And they sent the PSG in 13 minutes before the rally was due to close. And why did they do that? Because they wanted to show, according to CORBYN, that people who are spreading contagion like us have to be stopped. That's what his message was. And that has to be done violently to frighten away people like you. But you are here. We are undaunted. And then after that, I managed to get away I refused to leave the square when the police were attacking, by the way, but we left as a big group, a rally, and we went up through Piccadilly along to Harpster Street to Hyde Park, which was an amazing journey, I can tell you. It was just incredible. But when we got to Hyde Park, Dr. Haiku, who was speaking, by that time I'd escaped on a bus, because we think they might have been looking for me, we don't know. But I escaped on a bus, and Dr. Haiku got arrested and taken down, as you heard earlier, to Wandsworth Police Station, where I've been before, and he was held for 21 hours. But he's been treated like an international terrorist. MI5 are right there involved. They confiscated his laptop and his mobile phone. And they didn't ask for the PIN number. What does that mean? It means it was going straight to MI5 because they can open up anything. That's why. So the international crackdown is happening now on anyone who organises at all. So, it is all a psychological operation. Sorry, I'll just carry on here. Yes, but before we do that, just to get clear to the public, so they know, the sort of thing we've got to explain to them. One is, lockdowns do not work in their own terms, because in Sweden, less people were getting ill than here when we had a lockdown. Secondly, masking is mad. That rhymes. Yes, masking is mad. It's like, see that fence over there, expecting a fly to be stopped by that fence. That's what a mask does. It's a complete nonsense. It reduces your oxygen by 4%, and that is torture of growing children. Children shouldn't be wearing any masks at all. And it stores your toxins so you breathe them back in. It's madness. And the third thing to tell people is that distancing is daft, right? Because really, you need to be close to people. We're social animals. Get together with people, and it makes you happier, and that improves your immune system. So, I suggest to you now, we have a hug against the COVID con. So you hug the person next to you, with permission. Hug the person next to you, and if we're doing the rules, of course, you better stick to your social group while you're hugging, by the way. Make sure they're in your broad family. My broad family includes at least 50% of the people in the world. Yes, oh, a hug, thank you. Hey. Right.
Hug a day keeps COVID
yes,
away.
Yes.
Hug a day keeps COVID away.
That's right. A hug a day keeps COVID away. That's a good slogan, isn't it? Well, if the whole thing is a psychological operation now to control, and they have the Behavioural Studies Institute conveniently situated midway between Downing Street and Bill Gates' European office. What does that tell you? That is what it's all about. Anyway, this morning on the psychology issues, I had a dream that fear of a lie was no longer the law. That life's liberty and being was no longer a prisoner of corruption. That human smiles without masks opened the door to a new generation with new freedoms. So that is our dream, and we've got to make it come through, or we're going to be in a deep bad time.
Big bad hole.
A big bad hole, yes. So, where are we? We are too many pages here. Right, well, a question has been asked, is there actually a deadly virus anyway? And I would say no. But, so if there isn't, what are people dying of? Well, people do die anyway. But the numbers have been faked. Can you quieten people down? The numbers have been faked, so we have to take down, guess who? The BBC. Take down the BBC! Take down the BBC! Take down the BBC! Take down the BBC! Secondly, some people get a flu anyway, and they just blame anything people get on CV. And the third thing, of course, is increased 5G and 4G does make people's immune systems get lower, so they do get iller. And that's a proven statistical connection. And in those leaflets I've been giving out, you'll be able to find links to that. So I would say on that one, that's and the important thing about the 5G is the frequencies. The frequencies in 5G can be more damaging to the body, and you can read about it on the leaflets. And I would say, take down 5G! Take down 5G! Take down 5G! Take down 5G!
Take down 5G.
And if you've got any doubt as to in whose interest this is, just bear in mind that Bill Gates of hell and Zuckerberg and Bezos combined, their net value has gone up since the lockdowns began by £150 billion. That is £20 for every man, woman and child in the world! In the world! And your wealth has gone down. Okay. Now, the next thing they're doing, and I would urge that people really get to grips with this thing, the vaccination program is intended to be forced upon everybody, and it is deadly. Yes, it's modern vaccines do make people more ill than they were before. Statistically, you get iller if you've had a vax, and that includes the flu vax and the COVID vax, or any modern vax. So we have to absolutely campaign for the liberty of your body. And I don't care if we're called anti-vaxxers. We are anti-vaxxers. Any civilized person is an anti-vaxxer. And the claims that the virus has somehow been isolated are also bananas. And I'm not going to go through the banana trick again, but I'll show you a banana. I'll show you a banana. Well, I could go through it again. Okay, you see, Bill Gates and others say, oh, the virus has been isolated, even though they can't see it. Well, actually, all they've got is a DNA sequence. So it's like me being asked in an Agatha Christie novel to show there was a man in the room. And instead, I find a banana. It's a plastic banana, it bounced. The banana is 60% the same as the DNA of a man. So therefore they say, you see a banana, there's a man in the room. That is stupid, but that is the logic of them, because they rely on the public being brainwashed and made into being stupid. And they want to impose this experimental vaccine on everybody without liability to the vaccine makers. That is evil, evil, evil. So we say, stop all COVID vax programs now.
Genocide!
Yes.
That's right. Now when we say these things, we're told we are conspiracy theorists. Now I say that scream conspiracy theory is actually the primal scream of liars. That's all they can say when they're lying. And I would also say, as George Orwell said, and I have his book here, if I can get it out of my pocket. George Orwell. Yesterday's conspiracy theory is today's truth.
This is brilliant.
Now, what are they aiming for? You see, we do know what they're aiming for because they tell us. The World Economic Forum tells you they want a technocracy. They want artificial intelligence and 5G running the world. They want you to be controlled. They want 5G everywhere to control animals as well. All farm animals. All humans. And the vaccine tracks, of course, is to control you. They want the tracking only to increase, well you know this, to increase the number of false positives so they can alarm you and lock you down. But, now then, what is to be done? I would say this system we have before us is either got to become accountable or we have to make it fall. That is the only way. So these MPs have got to be given a choice. You've got to come with us or go, and my guess is that actually in the next few months there's going to be so much struggle in different towns. The TSG isn't big enough. The police are not big enough. We have to have local resistances to build areas where the COVID laws will not pass. It could happen in Liverpool now. Liverpool, people are going around without masks, everything. They're just doing what the hell they want. And I suggest you choose a pub, your favourite pub, and a day, and at 10 p.m. you have a rally outside that goes on till midnight. And you bring your own can of beer, or tonic water in my case, whatever. But we have to defy the lockdown measures one by one, step by step, in town by town and everywhere. And we go to MPs and tell them what they are, generally speaking. MPs are fools clamouring for an experimental vax to be forced upon us from evidence which is only a hoax. This is poppycock. And of course, bear in mind that MPs, and I know this from some of them, they are brainwashed 24/7, even more than the public. That is our problem. You have to get through to them. You have to argue with them, one by one. So, the key message we've got to resist, of course, is contagion fear. That is what binds the enemy to imprisonment. As I said, we've got to set up our movement action groups in every town. And there's enough people around to do that. Resist all the diktats. And we have to go over one. If they attack us on one thing, we should hit back twice. That will be a lesson. And we have hit back twice, if you like. The TSG were used against us in Trafalgar Square. So, you know, we started a campaign now, which is no more use of the TSG against peaceful demonstrations, and take down the TSG. And the second thing we called for in response is, as I said, rallies outside pubs. Choose your pub and do it every day, every week, whatever you can do in a locality. And another general thing is we've got to build the alternative media. The way to take down the BBC is actually replace the BBC with our own media. And we have to do that because if we don't, we'll lose. Well, also because, as George Orwell said again, in a society based on lies, speaking the truth is a revolutionary act. And specific demands on who's around now. We have to make Sadiq Khan resign, make Priti Patel resign, make Cressida Dick, the head of the Metropolitan Police, resign, and make Boris Johnson resign. So I suggest we end with a few chants. No, because we are saving lives while Boris Johnson's policies are killing people in old people's homes, deprived from a health service and everything. So, no more lockdowns, save lives. Let's try that one. No more lockdowns, save lives. No more lockdowns, save lives. No more lockdowns, save lives. And end masks and tracks, save lives. 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 It's a bit long for you to chant, isn't it? And end all COVID vax, save lives. You'll like that one. End all COVID vax, save lives. End all COVID vax, save lives. End all COVID vax, save lives. And we'll do the next one again. Take down 5G, save lives. How about that? Take down 5G, save lives. Take down 5G, save lives. Take down 5G, save lives. And the last thing to say is, as George Orwell said, in the historic choice between tyranny and freedom, we choose freedom! Thank you.
Just kill the son of
Let's hear it for Piers Corbyn. This man has fought tirelessly for months on end now on our behalf, and he's possibly the most prominent face of the freedom movement. And I, for one, am really grateful to him. And let's all show our appreciation and gratitude for what he's done.
Thank you.